Welcome to the Explainer. So today we've got a really cool creative puzzle on our hands. Imagine this. You need to recreate a super slick, professional animated logo, but all you've got is this grainy, low-quality GIF. Where do you even start? Well, we're about to break down exactly how a motion graphics pro reverse engineers an animation, right from the very beginning. So this whole thing kicked off because a viewer threw down a challenge. They sent us this exact GIF, the Arab North Gaming logo, and the question was, honestly, pretty simple. How on earth did they make this? I mean, think about it. No source files, no high-res images, nothing. How do you possibly recreate something so detailed from that?
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll dig into the Animator's Challenge. Then, we'll deconstruct and rebuild the logo from the ground up. After that, it's all about animating the core pieces, adding those cool effects, and finally, we'll get to see the final masterpiece.
So let's get into it. Our guide for this whole deep dive is the incredible Mohammed El-Babley. Now, this entire explainer is actually a breakdown of a fantastic workshop he put together. And trust me, you'll see pretty quickly why he was the absolute perfect person to tackle this creative puzzle.
I mean, this guy is the real deal. He's an Adobe certified expert, a super popular YouTube educator. He's done work for major companies all over the Arab world and has a ton of training courses out there. So yeah, he's got the chops. And you know how he started this whole massive project? With one simple but totally critical step. He took a single screenshot from that blurry GIF. That one image, that was going to be the blueprint for everything that came next.
Okay, so now we get to the really interesting part. You see, the entire animation, all the cool flashy stuff, it all hangs on this one super important first phase, rebuilding the static logo from scratch. It's simple, right? You can't animate something you don't actually have.
So the whole thing starts in Adobe Illustrator. First step, he just traces over that screenshot. Then the real work begins. He manually, meticulously redraws every single shape, every line, every detail, and then, and this is probably the most important part of the entire process, he separates everything that's going to move onto its own separate layer. The wings, the text, every little piece.
And this is where the real creative problem-solving kicks in. He actually said that, since he's not a trained illustrator, he had to kind of invent parts of the logo that you couldn't even see in the original. Think about it. When the character's hand moves away, you've got to see the hair that was behind it, right? Well, that hair didn't exist in the screenshot. He had to draw it completely from his imagination just to make the animation work. That's pretty cool.
So, here's the big takeaway. The secret sauce, if you will. Success with animation software like After Effects? It doesn't start when you start animating. No, it begins way before you set a single keyframe. It all comes down to organization, getting that layering right from the very beginning. That is everything.
All right, time to jump over to After Effects and see how all this prep work pays off. All our pieces are perfectly layered, they're imported. Now it's time to actually make things move. First up, those epic wings and the banner.
So let's talk about the wings first. The big challenge here is all about being smart, not just working hard. I mean, how do you get them to flap over and over and over again without sitting there animating every single flap by hand? That would take forever. The solution is actually pretty elegant. You just animate one perfect flap, and then you tell the software to just repeat that forever using a little bit of code.
That little bit of code is called an expression, and the command itself is loop out. Just by adding that one simple line, boom, you've got an infinite flapping cycle. This is a go-to trick for motion graphics artists. Anything that repeats, a blinking eye, a spinning wheel, you name it. This little expression saves you a ridiculous amount of work. Okay, next up is the Arab North banner. Now this movement is actually pretty complex. It doesn't just appear. It flies in from off screen, it's rotating in 3D space, then it pauses just long enough for you to read it, and then it settles back into its final spot. And to get that really satisfying kind of bouncy finish, he just applies a simple elastic effect. It automatically adds that springy little overshoot and settle that just makes the whole thing feel so much more real and natural.
So the main movements are all locked in. The wings are flapping, the banner is flying in, but it's still missing something, right? It feels a little flat. The next step is where the magic really happens. This is where we add that professional polish, the fire, the electricity, all the stuff that makes it feel so dynamic and powerful. And here's a little secret from the pros. You don't always have to build these crazy effects from the ground up. El-Babley figured out that the original animator probably used a super popular toolkit called the RTFX pack. It's basically a library of pre-made effects for things like fire, liquid, electricity.
It lets animators just drop in these amazing, high-quality effects and get a professional look super fast.
Okay, one of the coolest effects in this whole thing is how the shield and the character look like they're being drawn on screen by fire. The trick behind this is called an alpha matte. The easiest way to think about it is like a digital stencil. You take your fire animation, you put it on top of the shield layer, and then you tell After Effects, hey, use this fire layer as a stencil. So now, the shield only shows up wherever the fire is. It's an awesome and really powerful way to reveal things.
All right, we're almost there. We've got the big, flashy effects in place, but now it's time for the final, subtle touches. The little things that really sell the illusion. Because right now, our main character is still just a static drawing. It's time to actually bring her to life.
And this happens with 3 really subtle animations. First, her whole body gets this gentle, rhythmic sway. Second, her eyes actually blink. And he did this by directly editing the vector shapes of her eyelets to make it look super realistic. And finally, he uses something called the puppet pin tool to add this delicate, flowing movement to her hand and even a few strands of her hair. It just makes it feel like she's really there, reacting to the air around her.
So, after all that work, from the painstaking redrawing to the core animation, to layering on all those powerful effects, and then adding those tiny little character details, let's finally see how it all comes together.
And there it is. The final result is a dead ringer for the original. It's just a perfect reminder that amazing, complex animation is really a process of layering. You have to start with that solid foundation of clean, organized artwork. Then you add your main movements. On top of that, you layer the pro-level visual effects. And you finish it all off with those tiny, subtle details that breathe life and character into the whole thing.
At the end of the day, what this whole breakdown shows us is that behind just a few seconds of a polished animation, there are hours of creative problem solving and just layers upon layers of careful, meticulous work. So I guess the real question is, the next time you see a logo spring to life on your screen, what hidden details, what layers of effort are you going to be looking for now?